Alright, and we're live. Welcome, guys. So today we're going to be finishing the map editor, at least what I want to get done for this update. So we're going to be adding in the saving and loading feature, which is almost the same thing, just inversed. And we're also you're going to fix a couple bugs because of that. I'll show you guys how I want to save the maps. And we're going to fix one bug with the screenshotting of maps. So here I'm just going to tweet this out real quick. And I'll send it out on Discord. Actually, I misspelled something on the tweet. Let me delete that real quick. Send out a new one. Come on. Okay, there you go, finally. Okay, there you go. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I'm gonna get the chat open so I can see you guys. Hello, Landon. What's up? Hello, D3NX. For some reason, I recognize your channel name. Do you have a big channel, D3NX? I think maybe I've seen a couple of your videos before. Alright, so welcome, guys. So yeah, I'm just going to add in the map save and load functionality to the map editor, so it'll be all ready to do basically the same thing next week, but for the actual game itself. So we're gonna have to implement the chunk system in the game. I don't know how long it'll take. It'll probably take less time than for the map editor. So maybe a week. I'll try to get that done next week, I think. But first I just want to show you guys kind of my idea for how we're going to save the maps. So the maps are now going to be saved into folders. So I'll just create a folder. I'll just call it world. So that would be like the map for the entire game world. And when you go in here, there'll be a file like settings. It would be a JSON file, and then in here there'll be a chunks folder. So the settings will have things like the name of the map, what chunks it has, a couple other little things like that. Also, anyways, I have all the settings here. You know, like there's the music that plays in the background of the map, also the background image and the foreground image as well. And in the chunks folder, it's going to be filled with a bunch of folders. Whoops. So they're all going to be numbered, and these will represent the y-axis. I just need to make sure though that I can do negative numbers if it's possible. Yeah, okay, good. And then in here, there will be also numbered files, but they'll be .jsons. It'd be like 8. -3. Or -2 actually, I wrote. So basically, the folder is going to stand for the row index, and then once you go inside, it's going to stand for the X index of the chunk. And then in here you'll have the chunk data. So that's kind of my idea for storing it. So I'm going to stick with that. Now it's just a couple of things I need to make sure that I have all set up properly. So I have the map data folder, file I should say, in here. So right now it has these values, which I don't want. Also now the chunk is going to be taking care of the entities that are in it. So I basically need to remove all of these. And instead I'm going to put an array list of chunk locations. This doesn't exist yet. Also, I can't forget in chunk data here, I need to put public array list entity snapshot. So I'll put the snapshots inside the chunks themselves. Okay, and then we have to create this chunk location thing here. So chunk location. And I thought I should mention the reason why I'm actually saving all the chunks into different files is so that I would be able to load chunks in into the memory of the server, so that not all the chunks are loaded in right off the bat. We only load in the files of the chunks that players are in or close to, like adjacent to. And once there are no players adjacent to or in that certain chunk, then we unload the chunk and put it back in the file and save it. So it's mainly for memory management. So instead of loading in, instead of just having this one map.json file with saving all the chunks in it, you would have to load in the entire file, which could be really big, especially for the main game world. It can be, I don't know how big, maybe even reach the hundreds of megabytes, or maybe even a gigabyte at one point. We never know. So so in the settings, we're going to be storing the simple X and Y object, which will keep track of all the chunks that we need to load in. So there you go, we have them in here as an array list. And yeah, I think that's it. Okay, this is complaining a little bit. It's probably in the save and load things, yeah, because we're adding in the snapshots here. So we're gonna actually going to have to move these array lists into the chunks themselves. So do I have that here? No, I don't. Here, I'm going to close all these generator stuff because they're not really working on that today. Map change, you can remove. Oh, okay, so I'm gonna have to actually copy this. So I would do, so I'd create a new list, and then I would go through the list of the chunk to copy. So since I'm adding in this, I have to basically add it in all the constructors. So there's 3 of them. So chunk, no, it's entity snapshot. I don't think I have any cloning for entity snapshot. So I'm just going to keep that the same. Let me see. Entity snapshot. Oh, there is cloning for entity snapshots. Okay, good. And then we have this one that loads in the entity snapshots from the data. We'll just do that. Okay, so now let's remove all references to entity snapshots in the map. Okay. So I'm just going to delete all of this. So the load and save methods take in a file. So this file it's going to basically be the folder, the root folder of the map. So it would be this folder. So we're gonna have to change something in the main editor as well, because right now it's passing in a JSON file. Here, I can actually probably run the game, the editor now, just to show you guys. So if you do open, see it's looking to open a file of type JSON, but we want it to select a folder. We want the person to select a folder to open rather than a file. So we're gonna have to go into the main editor and change that. So here, file open. Show map save dialog and show map open dialog. Okay, so let's start with the open. So here it's checking for a filter. So I want to see if there's a J folder chooser, if that exists. Okay, we're gonna have to Google it real quick. I'm going to try something. I'm going to just remove this, remove that. Now I'm pretty sure, because the way Java I/O works is that, whoops, they treat folders and files as kind of the same thing. Like, see if I just do this, okay, it opens that, so it doesn't select it. Okay, so this will go step by step. Okay, there you go. Set file selection mode, file chooser, directories only. Alright, so that's simple enough. So let's start with the open file one. So open file dot set select mode jfile chooser dot directories only, and open file dot set all file filter to false. So this will make it so that the user can only select directories, and this will make it so that they can't choose the all files option. Here, I'll just show you guys what that is real quick. You probably know what I mean, but I keep clicking new just because of habit. See here, you can click all files. So we want to disable that. So we want to be able to select the world and then just click open, and then there you go. See, that's the file that gets opened. Actually, we need to change something in the map quickly. Map equals new map. Okay, and then it's making it load it in. So if we're doing a new map like this, because we're going to be loading it in, then I shouldn't add in the chunk 00. And also there's, oh yeah, okay, that value is not used because it's only used to get to save into a file. That's fine. Okay, so in the main editor, so we got this figured out. I just want to test to see what it looks like with that option enabled. Okay, so it just does a blank thing like that. Alright, that's okay. So let's copy this over onto this dialog for saving maps. Okay. So that was setting it to .json. Okay, so now let's get into the map actually saving and loading stuff. Where is it? Okay, there they are. Okay, so this is the folder itself. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that the folder actually exists. So folder.dears. And then we need to get the settings file. So file, settings file is equal to new file. Now I want to rename this to folder actually. So this specifies the folder that the file's in, and then this says the file that we need within that folder. So settings file. Now we need some sort of exception. So I'm going to create an exception. And I'll put it in here actually. map file is so that would be the default message. So we need to check for a couple of things first. So we need to check if settings file dot exists. If it doesn't exist, we should specify that this throws an invalid map folder exception. So actually, let's check if it doesn't exist. Then we can do throw new invalid map folder exception. We can put our own error. No settings file found. Okay, so if it doesn't exist, then we need to actually load in the file. So we're going to create a new JSON object. New JSON. And a file reader. Reader is equal to new file reader. Loading is actually much more complicated than saving because you need to check for all these errors first. Like if the file is actually invalid to load and all that. Saving's fairly straightforward. You just overwrite the files. If they already exist, just overwrite it and everything. So it's nice and easy. File reader, settings file. File not found exception. Okay, so we can actually put this in here like that. Maybe easier that way. Now, can I do JSON dot from JSON? Oh, and you can pass in a reader. That's very useful. So here we can do map data. Map data is equal to map data JSON dot from JSON and map data dot class, and we pass in the reader. That's very useful. So it reads in all this stuff for us, which is super useful. Okay, so now we have the map data. Maybe I should have kept that thing there. And change this to just a regular exception. And put map data, map data. And here, keep that thing here to check if the file exists. Settings file dot exists. So if it doesn't exist, then we throw this error here. Okay, so it's going to read this file. And if something's invalid or whatever, it's going to throw this exception. If not, it's going to continue on to here, and we're going to have the map data here. So with this map data, we can load in stuff for the map. So we can load in the settings. So we can do this dot name is folder dot get name. This dot display name is equal to map data dot display name. This dot natural lighting is equal to map data dot natural lighting. This dot music map data dot music, and I think that's all the values we have just for that. Then we also have the chunks. So for chunk location, I'm just wondering if I should assume that the chunk locations are you know what I mean? Yeah, okay, I'm going to change that a little bit. I'm going to remove the chunk location class. No, that's no good. I don't know if I should assume that the chunk locations are in order of rows, because when I save it out, it's going to do that. But just in case we start adding in files, you know what? I won't assume anything, so I'll just do location, or I should actually say, just do chunk location in map data dot chunks. We could import this. Okay, so for each one, we need to load in the folder and also then load in the file for it. Is equal to new file. So this would be in folder, and it would be chunks. Okay, so we got the chunk folder. Okay, so then we get the folder for the Y. So we go into the chunks folder and then we get the Y folder, so that. And then within here we need to get the file. So file, chunk, file. We shouldn't even be calling this here. So if the folder doesn't exist, then we throw new invalid. Okay, so then we got the chunk file. So we need to make sure that this chunk row folder actually exists. So if not chunk row folder dot exists, then we throw a new invalid map folder exception. We can say expected a chunk row folder called chunk location dot y, it was not found. Okay, and then we get the chunk file. It's equal to new file, chunk row folder. And this would be located at the chunk location.x plus .json, because it's supposed to have a .json extension at the end. And of course you need to do another check to see if this exists or not. So chunk file.exists. Could not find the expected chunk file at chunk location.y. Okay, there you go. So it's just going to say that we couldn't find that chunk in that chunk folder and that chunk file, so that file doesn't exist. And then now we have to actually read the file, so we need to make another file reader. We'll call it, actually we can call it reader, I think. It's safe. Is equal to new file reader. We pass in the chunk file. And this requires a try catch. So then we throw a new exception. Actually, I'm just going to copy this one because it's basically the same thing. Invalid chunk file. And then in here we do JSON dot, or actually we should do chunk data. Data is equal to chunk data. So we're casting in the JSON dot from JSON. And we're going to be passing in the reader, so chunk data dot class, and then the reader. And then if that's all successful, then we need to load in this chunk. So we do this dot add chunk chunk location.x chunk location.y new chunk, and we give it the chunk data. There you go. So that'll add it to the list. So that's good. And I think that's it for loading it in. Maybe I should comment this a little bit. Load in chunks. Now that we have these settings. The chunk row folder. Get the chunk file in folder. And we should actually be closing all of these things once we're done. So reader dot close, or actually I should be doing finally. Reader dot close. I need access to it here. has an IO exception to close it. That's annoying. Okay, and then we do chunk row folder. Okay, there's no close operation for that. I thought there is for files, but I guess not. Okay, and we'll have to do the same thing here. And I didn't have to do an exception throwing here. That's weird. Anyways. Okay, there you go. Now it's saying it. Okay, there you go. So it's good to close all the resources before you're done. Load data from chunk file. Okay, so that should be not too bad, I think, actually. I think we should have actually tested out the saving before the loading so we could actually see that it saves properly and everything. But it's okay, we're going to have both done and it'll be good. We need to try catch here. And in here we should do show there's got to be some sort of way to show an error dialog. I'm sure I've done that somewhere. Okay, there you go. J option pane. So J option pane dot show message dialog parent component. I guess that would be frame. Okay, and okay, now let's do the save. So we don't really need to throw an exception for saving. So let's specify the folder here. So let's get the settings file. So file settings file is equal to new file folder settings.json. Now in here we're actually going to have to do that thing that automatically creates the directories. So make directories. Yes, now we have the settings file. Now settings file dot create new file. That has an exception, of course. So we're just going to make it throw an IO exception. Throws. So we're going to pass on the error to the editor. So then we can just do a dialog saying like, I don't know, whatever the exception is there. For create new file, it could be that the exception is that there's no space on the hard disk to actually create a new file. Oh, hey, Vevrock, sorry, I didn't see your message. Yeah, it's a long thing, the chunk system. Almost done doing it on the map editor, and then we have probably another week of doing it on the in the game itself. But then after that, we're going to be adding in a couple little features, a couple little bugs, some fairly easy stuff, and actually that'll be it for this update. And we're going to start working on content, so stick in there. But yeah, it is a long thing, this chunk thing. Okay, so we got the settings file that's created. Now we need to write it out, so create a file writer. Writer is equal to null. Or actually we can probably just do new file writer. Settings file. Then we need to actually create the map data file. So map data is equal to new map data dot I think we should write the settings file after. It would be easier that way. So data dot display name. Actually, in the map data, I want to put the ID of the map in here. It'd be better. Or just the name, I should say. It's better that way. Display name equals this dot display name. Data dot name is equal to this dot name. Data dot natural lighting equal to this dot natural lighting. Data dot music equal to this dot music. And we're gonna do the chunks after this. So we're gonna call this the settings writer actually. So next we're actually going to do all the chunk folders. So for chunk row in chunk rows. So we're going to create the folder for the chunk row. So first we should actually create the chunk file. So file chunk folder equal to new file folder chunks chunk folder dot make directories, and then we do file row file or folder I should say equal to new file chunk folder row dot get y. Okay, so then that's the row folder, and then within the row we need to specify each chunk and save that into a file. So chunk in row.getChunks. Now for each one of these we're going to have to specify a file writer, chunk file writer. Let's go to new file writer, new file. So we pass in the file directly. This would be in the row folder, and the path will be chunk.getX plus .json. And then in here we can actually just do, well, we're actually missing a method in here. In the chunk class, we need to create a method where we can actually get the chunk data. So public chunk data, get data. returns the chunk data to be saved to a file. So chunk data is equal to new chunk data. I forgot to name the variable. It's very simple. You just got to do all this, and data.entity is equal to this.entity snapshots. Return data. So then all we need to do is do, oh, we didn't even specify JSON object yet. Let's put that right here. JSON dot to JSON chunk.getData, and then we pass in the chunk file writer, so that'll write it out to the chunk file. And oh yes, we also need to make sure that the row folder dot make their dirs, so that'll make the directories for it. Now why I was saving the settings file for later is because we need to add in the chunk locations. So we'll add the chunk locations in the same loop, so instead of having two embedded loops doing basically the same thing, we'll just save space and do it into one, and then save the settings file after instead of before, which makes no difference really. So chunk location, so the x will be chunk.getX, and the y is chunk.getY. It's giving an error because there's no constructor for that, so let's create a default constructor first, and then we'll create a generated one here. Just give it some default values. Okay, and then we just need to do chunk file writer dot close. And we close it earlier than later. Okay, so that's good. I just want to make sure of one thing first. I want to make sure that the row folder I want to see if there's a way to clear the folder. List files returns an array. Okay, so that will list all the files within it. So what I want to do is for file in row folder dot could it be this row folder dot exit? No. So when I create these row folders, I want to make sure that they're empty before we start adding in the chunk file. So I'm just deleting them, all of its contents in here. And I'm going to do the same for the chunk folder. Okay, there you go. And then now we just have to save the settings file. So we do settings, JSON dot to JSON data settings writer, and then settings writer dot close. And I think that's all. So we just need to make sure that we're handling this exception here. So we're surrounded with try catch. Okay, actually here I have some stuff for it. For that. Yeah, it's just, this is a better way I think of doing these message panels. So we got the try catch here. So J option pane dot show message. Frame could not save the map. Okay, there you go. And what are these errors all about? Element data. Okay, that's all in Archipelo server. That's for loading in the maps. So that's fine. It's not errors with the editor. We're gonna have to adjust those next week once we fix all of these things. Okay, so let's create a new map and try to save it. So I'm just going to load some chunks in like this. Save it to the desktop in a new folder. Here, save it to the world folder. Your map was successfully saved, so let's see what it looks like. Okay, so we got this settings file here. I'm going to change the JSON setting so it prints it more nicely. But this looks good though. See, the map name was test, the display name was test. These are all the chunks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which makes sense because we loaded in 9 chunks. If we go in the chunks here. Okay, so these are normal. Although this -5 was something I created to test, and it should have deleted that. So there's something obviously wrong with my deleting code. I'm just going to Google it. Java, how to delete folder contents. Okay, because it's not able to delete a folder because it is. Okay, so I'm gonna have to create a recursive method to do this. That's not too bad. public void delete folder. So for each file, child in folder.list files, if child.is directory, delete folder contents This should be private. It's like a utility method. So private, no. Delete folder contents of the chunk folder and delete folder contents of the row folder. I'll move the comment onto the same line so I can do this. So basically what this does is it goes into a folder, it looks at all the children files of the folder. If the child is a directory, then it calls this function passing in the child. So it recursively goes down and just deletes things. And then finally it deletes the child file. If it wasn't a directory, it's just going to delete it straight up. So that's just a simple recursive algorithm to do that. Okay, it might work now. Let's try that out. We'll call the map test again. Save it to the world folder again. Okay, so this map was saved. Hold on, I'm going to put in a folder here just to test. -5, and we should also put some files in here. Let's try it again. Map was saved. Okay, look, it was deleted. Alright, so that worked. Now if we go in here, each one of these rows should have 3 because it's a 3x3 thing. And if you go in there, it should have the map data. I'm going to make it use a nicer printing for the JSON because it's a bit ugly. So dot set. How do I do that again? Pretty print. Oh, okay, I see how. So instead of doing .toJSON, we do chunk file writer .write string JSON dot pretty print, like that. And we do the same thing basically here. Okay, so let's try that again. Okay, It does the 2D arrays kind of weirdly. That's alright. At least I want the settings file to look good. So yeah, this looks good. It's much easier to write into this way now, I think. Although there might be even more we can do. So json.prettyprint. And we can get prettyprint settings. Prettyprint settings. Put the new prettyprint settings. So settings. What can we change here? Output type. Single line columns. An object is on a single line. We'll do 15. Settings dot wrap numeric arrays. Output type is equal to JSON output type, JSON writer dot output type. So JSON writer dot output type dot pass in those settings here. And here as well. Okay, so I don't know if it'll look that good or that much better than already did. Let's try to open the file actually now. So we'll go with world like this. Hey, there you go. That worked perfectly. And if we save it back, go back into here. Okay, so that's what I wanted actually. I kind of like when objects are on the same line like this. So how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I'll give it a little bit more space. Let's do 30. Okay, so that looks good. And let's go into the chunks, see what one of the chunks looks like. Okay. I think that's probably as good as we'll get. It doesn't seem to have any settings for formatting 2D arrays. But that looks pretty good though. So oh, there's a lot of lines in here. Alright, so now it saves and loads maps. And there's one more thing I want to add in quickly. I want to see... Oops, I shouldn't have closed it because I need to test in here actually. Here, we'll just open that. Previously when I press F5, I would have it save out the map. But this doesn't work anymore, so we're going to have to implement it using the new chunk system. So basically how that's going to work is I need to create okay, I'll do that in the world renderer. Actually, I do it in Archipelo. I have a screenshot feature in Archipelo. I won't use the print screen key anymore. I think I'll use F2. So if you go in here, actually I'm curious here. It doesn't seem to have anything for that. Okay, to open a file chooser, I don't even need the JFrame, so that's good. So I'm thinking you press the screenshot, and then it would open a JFile chooser, and then the person can choose a location to save the .png file of the screenshot. So in the client here, okay, it's here. So byte pixels, screen utils.get frame buffer pixel. What is get back buffer width? I have to look into that. GDX dot graphics.get back buffer height. Okay, so I don't just want to screenshot the screen. I want to screenshot the entire map. So I wonder if I can write out the batch to the pixmap. Pixmap dot draw. It might not even be possible to do it at this point, but I want to try it at least. Here, I'll just Google it. I'm really not sure actually if this is even possible at this point. Oh yes, frame buffer objects, I forgot about that. Okay. So let's try that out. So what I need to do is when the F2 key is pressed, so case keys.f2, you do create a frame buffer object. Am I misspelling it? Frame buffer object. Oh, I think they changed it to just frame buffer now in libgdx. Okay, so it will be format dot. Let's do good resolution. The width and height would be editor dot get map dot get. So it would be times the editor dot tile size. Has a depth. We'll do false for now. I'm not too sure exactly what that does, but frame buffer dot. So if you do batch dot set I think I just do batch.begin and then I start rendering from what I remember. Actually, I think I have a frame buffer in Archipelo right now, so I can go check that out. Oh, no, I removed it. Well, maybe not. Then apply shader. Yeah, I think I removed it. I had like this thing we're testing with like an upside down version of the map. Okay, so then here I would just do map.rend editor.getMap.draw. Pass in the asset manager. True, true, false. Visible width and visible height. That I believe is the chunk width and chunk height. Oh no, it's the tile width and tile height. So that would be editor.getMap.get min tile x, editor.getMap.get min tile y. This would be editor.getMap.get width. I think that's it, and then we have to save this out. So how do we save this? Color buffer texture. Okay, so this actually gives us a texture, and then we can probably save out the texture to the file. Okay, and then I can do pix pixmap io dot write png gdx dot files dot absolute. I'm just going to put in an absolute path to my desktop. Okay. Guess I should test it out now. So if I load in the world, now if I press F2, okay, texture data implementation does not return a pixmap. Okay. Oh, we need to call prepare. So texture data is equal to data dot prepare, and then I can do data dot consume map. That should work. Let's try that again. So we're going to do it a bit better after. I won't just save it to the desktop. I just want to test it out. No. Let's open the file here. Press F2. Okay, there's another bug. Already prepared. It's weird that I can't do that. Okay, so I'm going to try to induce that bug again. Well, not that bug, but that exception. Keep doing that. Open world. I should actually make it so that when you save a map, you're choosing the folder you want to save it into, and then it would save it automatically, the folder. I think that makes more sense, so I'm going to change that quickly. Oh, okay, so it seems like there's a way to change this. So when I create the frame buffer, I should be able to do it like that. That's useful. Pixmap texture data. Okay, and then from here, will I be able to do call create? Let's try that. Maybe I'm not getting exactly what the guy posted, but I think that's okay. Press F2. No crashes. Let's check on the desktop. Okay, well it seems like it's having a hard time loading the image. Or maybe just didn't render it at all. Maybe I forgot to bind the batch to the FBO or something like that. Or actually, I think I'm supposed to call the FBO begin and end before the batch one. Let's try that. Okay, so it's still not working. libgdx, how to use an FBO. Okay, so I call FBO.begin. Okay, and then I'm supposed to, right, so I should call these, it's not in here. So I can clear the map like this. Also, I should be setting the projection matrix of the batch to some default one, I think. Batch.set projection matrix. If I set that to null, is that gonna work? Now, what am I doing that for? Oops, set projection matrix. Okay, so I can't set it to null. Hello, welcome everybody. There's a lot of people in. Welcome, welcome. Here, the easiest way to do this would just be to create a new batch. Maybe I just can't render from this thread, and that's why. Yeah, that could be actually. I'll try something a little different. I'll do protected boolean render map to file equal to false. So if I put that on the main thread, maybe this will work. If render map to file. Oh, I'm still setting projection matrix to null. Whoops. How big is this image anyway? Okay, let's just do calculations quick. So chunks are 128 by 128. So already one issue is that that image is way too big. Oh wait, no, then it's times 3. Okay, no, that's fine. That's the good size. Maybe if I open in GIMP or something, it'll actually load up properly. No. It's good, and it's actually saving in everything. Yeah, maybe if I set depth to true. I doubt that'll fix it though. Thing that I'm not too sure about is that it's not even rendering this thing here, this background. So maybe I'm doing something wrong with the FBO. have nearest filtering anyways. I feel like this is somehow wrong though. I really don't know what to do at this point. Maybe I'll ask for Stack Overflow. Okay, look, this person actually wrote here. Alright, well I think I'm going to end the stream here because I just can't figure this thing out. I'll figure it out on my own time though. I'm sure there's a way to do it. I just need to do some more research. And this is kind of boring for the stream, so I'll end it here. But yeah, so we got the saving working and also the loading, and it looks pretty good. So next week I'll be streaming. I'm not sure which day, so go to our Discord server. The link's in the description. You guys can join it there, and I'll announce it on there. So next week we're going to be doing this map loading and saving and everything related to the chunk system on the server. So that'll probably take a few days, and then I might take another day to remove islands from the game. Yeah, well, there's going to be islands in the game, but I mean, like, right now the way the game works is that maps are saved in islands, and islands have a bunch of maps. Where we're going to change that. We're just going to change it so that it's just a bunch of maps, and we can put yeah. So we're just changing a little bit the way it works, so it's going to be more seamless. Because the way Archipelo is designed right now, it was designed in a way that there would be loading screens. So when you enter a new island, you enter a loading screen to load into it, and then if you enter maps from there, the maps would be linked to the island, but it's not going to be like that anymore. Oh, you're very welcome in the comments. Anyway, so I'll end the stream here. Thank you everyone for joining. We had quite a bit of viewers today, so that's pretty good. And yeah, don't forget to follow on Discord so you can see my announcement for that.